I'm Audrey Sullivan, 26 years old, and I still remember the deafening silence of my phone the day I moved out of my parents' house. No calls asking if I needed help, no texts wondering where I was going, nothing. For 4 years, I built a life they never bothered to learn about. Then last Tuesday, my phone lit up with Dad on the screen. Not to check if I was alive, but to demand something that finally showed me what I'd always been to them. Nothing but a resource to be tapped. Before I continue, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Growing up in the Sullivan household looked perfect from the outside. Our two-story colonial in an affluent Boston suburb, with its manicured lawn and luxury cars in the driveway, projected success and stability. My father, Thomas, was an investment banker who specialized in mergers and acquisitions, while my mother, Meredith, built her reputation as a cutthroat corporate attorney. They were respected, wealthy, and completely emotionally unavailable. As a child, I tried everything to win their approval. I still have my fourth-grade report card with straight A's that my father glanced at before asking, "No, A+." I remember setting the dinner table perfectly every night, hoping my mother would notice. She rarely did. My 10th birthday stands out vividly in my memory. I had invited my entire class to a party at our house, and Mom had hired a party planner to handle everything. As 20 children arrived bearing gifts, I kept glancing toward the driveway waiting for my parents' cars to appear. They never did. My father had an emergency client meeting, and my mother was finalizing an important case. The party planner gave me an extra piece of cake and a pitying smile. "Your parents work very hard to give you all this," she said, gesturing to the bouncy castle and professional magician, as if things could replace presents. In 8th grade, I won first place in the state science competition with my project on renewable energy. When my name was called, I walked across the stage and accepted my trophy, scanning the audience for my parents' faces. The seats I had reserved remained empty. Later, I learned they had taken a last-minute business trip to Chicago. My science teacher drove me home and told me she was proud. I kept that trophy hidden in my closet rather than displaying it. What was the point? High school graduation should have been different. They actually showed up this time dressed impeccably. My mother in a navy designer suit, and my father looking distinguished in his tailored charcoal ensemble. But throughout the ceremony, they networked with other parents. I overheard my mother exchanging business cards with the father of my valedictorian classmate. After the ceremony, they took a few obligatory photos, before my father spent 30 minutes chatting with my principal about investment opportunities. We never went out for the celebration dinner they had promised. The contrast between how they treated me and my younger brother Jackson was impossible to miss. Jackson was the miracle baby born after my mother had been told she couldn't have more children. 3 years younger than me, he received everything I craved: attention, affection, celebration. When Jackson made the junior varsity football team as a freshman, my parents threw a party and invited the extended family. When I was named editor of the school newspaper the same year, my mother said, "That's nice, dear," without looking up from her legal briefs. The pattern continued throughout my adolescence. Jackson's B- in algebra earned him congratulatory ice cream. My perfect SAT scores received a nod and a distracted, "Good job." It wasn't Jackson's fault. He was just as trapped in our parents' dysfunctional value system as I was, just on the favored side of it. I developed coping mechanisms to deal with the constant invisibility. I started journaling at 12, pouring my thoughts and feelings onto pages that someone might actually see. I found substitute parental figures in my teachers, my friends' parents, anyone who would notice me. Mrs. Patterson, my English teacher, attended my debate competitions. Mr. Chen, my best friend Lisa's father, taught me to change a tire and checked in on my college applications more thoroughly than my own father ever did. I remember one particularly painful dinner conversation during my junior year. "I'm thinking about studying graphic design in college," I said, trying to engage my parents in my future. My father scoffed without looking up from his steak. "That's not a real career, Audrey." "But I'm really good at it. My art teacher says I have genuine talent." "Art teachers say that to everyone," my mother interjected. "Law or medicine, those are real careers with stability." "Jackson wants to study business," my father said, suddenly animated, following in the old man's footsteps. Jackson, 15 at the time, just shrugged and continued eating. He hadn't even mentioned an interest in business to me. I've already researched the top design programs. I continued, determined to be heard. We're not paying for you to doodle for 4 years, my father said, firmly closing the conversation. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would succeed despite them, not because of them. I would build a life where I was valued, even if I had to create it entirely on my own. I didn't know then how completely I would have to fulfill that promise. My acceptance letter to Rhode Island School of Design came with a substantial merit scholarship. I placed it on the kitchen counter where my parents would see it, along with a financial aid package that would cover most of the remaining costs. 2 days later, I found it buried under mail unopened. When I finally told them over dinner, my father's response was, "At least it won't cost us much." College became my first taste of real freedom. Suddenly, I was surrounded by people who actually saw me. My roommate Kayla noticed when I got a haircut. My professors knew my name and recognized my work. For the first time, I experienced what it felt like to matter to the people around me. During sophomore year, I met Dr. Amelia Torres, who would become the mentor I had always craved. She taught advanced graphic design and recognized something in my work that resonated with her. "You have an unusual perspective, Audrey," she told me after class one day. "Your designs speak to feeling overlooked, but they demand attention in the most elegant way. That tension is compelling." I nearly cried on the spot. Not just because of the compliment, but because she had seen something in my work that reflected my very soul. That was more recognition than my parents had given me in 20 years of existence. Under Dr. Torres's guidance, my skills flourished. She connected me with alumni-recommended books and conferences and pushed me to enter my work in competitions. When I won the National Student Design Award in my junior year, she took me out for dinner to celebrate. I didn't even bother telling my parents about the award. During senior year, I landed an internship at Meridian Design, a boutique agency in Boston, known for their innovative work. The small team environment meant I got to contribute meaningfully, rather than just fetch coffee. By the end of the internship, the creative director offered me a full-time position starting after graduation. "Your portfolio is exceptional," she told me, "but it's your problem-solving approach that really stands out. We'd love to have you join our team." I accepted on the spot. The starting salary wasn't huge, but it was enough to live on, especially with a roommate. My best friend from college, Zoe Jenkins, was also staying in Boston after graduation working for a nonprofit. We found a small 2-bedroom apartment in Somerville that we could afford if we budgeted carefully. Everything was falling into place, a life I had created through my own efforts. The only shadow was going home for winter break during my final year. I'd been staying in the dorms during previous breaks, or visiting Zoe's family, who had always welcomed me warmly. But I needed to collect more of my belongings before the permanent move to Boston. I arrived home to find my bedroom door closed, which was unusual. When I opened it, my heart dropped. My bedroom had been completely transformed into a home gym. A treadmill stood where my bed had been. A weight bench occupied the corner that once held my desk. My bookshelves were gone, replaced by a wall-mounted TV and exercise equipment. My things had been packed into boxes stacked in the garage. Many items were damaged from the careless packing and the garage's dampness. Photo albums, books, childhood mementos all showed water damage or mold. My art supplies were crushed under heavier items. I found my mother in the kitchen typing on her laptop. My room, was all I could manage at first. "You turned it into a gym." She glanced up briefly. "We needed the space, and you're hardly ever here. Your father's doctor said he needs to exercise more for his heart health." "But my things, you could have called me first. It's been sitting in storage for months. If you needed anything, you should have taken it to school." "Storage? You mean the garage? Half of it is ruined from moisture." She sighed as if I was being unreasonable. "Audrey, you're an adult now. We assumed you'd be getting your own place after graduation anyway." The realization hit me hard. They had already mentally moved me out, discarded me from the family home, without even the courtesy of a conversation. I was less important than a treadmill my father would probably use twice before abandoning. I spent that night in the guest room crying silently into an unfamiliar pillow. The next morning, I called Zoe. "They converted my room without telling me," I sobbed. "They packed my stuff in the garage and half of it is ruined." "Oh my God, Audrey, that's horrible." Zoe's outrage on my behalf was validating. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I'm supposed to be here for 2 more weeks." "Come stay with me. My parents would love to have you. You know that." I think I hesitated, the weight of my decision settling on me. "I think I'm just going to move out. Completely. Get everything I still want to keep and just not come back." "Are you sure?" Zoe asked, though I could hear the understanding in her voice. "Yes. There's nothing for me here. There hasn't been for a long time." I spent the day sorting through my damaged belongings in the garage, salvaging what I could. I called a small moving company and arranged for them to pick up the boxes the next day. I booked a hotel for the night and reserved a storage unit in Boston until I could move into the apartment with Zoe. Before leaving, I wrote a letter explaining that I was moving out permanently. I left it on the kitchen counter, propped against the fruit bowl, where they couldn't miss it. Then I waited. I sat in my car at the end of the street for 2 hours, my phone in my hand, certain that any minute they would call, having found my note. The call never came. I checked my phone obsessively for days afterward. Nothing. No call, no text, no email asking where I had gone or if I was okay. After a week, I stopped checking. After 2 weeks, I accepted the reality they hadn't noticed I was gone, or if they had, they didn't care enough to reach out. I was 22 years old, and I had become a ghost in my own family. My new life began in that small Somerville apartment with Zoe. Our place wasn't much. Mismatched furniture walls, we couldn't paint neighbors who argued loudly at midnight. But it was ours. More importantly, it was a space where I was seen and valued. I still remember my first day at Meridian Design. I wore a black pencil skirt and emerald blouse I'd carefully selected from a consignment shop. Professional but creative, I thought. I was terrified, convinced they would realize I was a fraud and rescind their offer. Instead, the creative director Natalie introduced me to everyone as the design prodigy from RISD we're lucky to have snagged. My desk had a small welcome basket with office supplies, local coffee, and a plant. The simple gesture nearly made me cry. "We're a family here," Natalie told me. "A functional one," she added with a wink. Over the following months, I formed genuine connections with my coworkers. Damon, a copywriter with kind eyes and a quick wit. Paige, an account manager who took no prisoners in client meetings but remembered everyone's birthday. Marcus, the senior designer, who became my unofficial mentor, patiently answering my questions and championing my ideas in brainstorming sessions. Damon especially became a constant presence in my life. He would leave coffee on my desk when I looked tired. He laughed at my jokes and asked follow-up questions when I shared opinions. Small things, but they made me feel substantial, like I occupied real space in someone else's world. 6 months into my new life, Zoe convinced me to try therapy. "You've got trauma, girl," she said bluntly over takeout one night. "The way your parents treated you wasn't normal, doctor." Valerie Kim's office became my sanctuary every Wednesday evening. She helped me understand that my parents' neglect wasn't my fault, that no child deserves emotional abandonment. "You developed what we call an invisibility complex," she explained during one session. "You learned to take up as little space as possible because that's what felt safe. But now it's keeping you from fully engaging with your new life." She was right. I rarely shared opinions at work unless directly asked. I apologized constantly. I was surprised whenever anyone remembered details about me. Working through these patterns was painful, but necessary. That first holiday season away from home was both liberating and disorienting. I didn't miss the tense family dinners or being ignored, but I mourned what should have been. Zoe's family invited me for Thanksgiving, setting an extra place at their table without hesitation. Her mother hugged me warmly, and her father asked thoughtful questions about my job. I contributed a homemade apple pie to the meal and nearly burst into tears when everyone praised it. "Your family now, honey," Zoe's mom said, squeezing my hand. "Our door is always open." For Christmas, my coworkers organized a design family celebration at Natalie's house. We exchanged silly gifts, ate too much, and sang off-key carols. When I received a text from my mother, "Merry Christmas," with no other message, I barely felt the sting. My career flourished at Meridian. 9 months in, I received my first promotion to junior designer with a modest raise. The team took me out for drinks to celebrate. To Audrey, Marcus toasted, raising his glass, whose talent is matched only by her humility. We're all going to be working for her someday. Everyone cheered. I felt a warmth spreading through me that had nothing to do with the champagne. This was what recognition felt like. This was what family could be. After 2 years sharing with Zoe, I took another leap and rented my own small studio apartment. It was barely 500 square feet, but every inch of it was mine to decorate and exist in however I wanted. I painted one wall deep teal. I hung art I loved. I bought plants and kept them alive. My therapy sessions with Dr. Kim shifted from processing trauma to building confidence. Your parents failed to mirror your worth back to you, she explained, but you're learning to recognize it yourself now. Dating was more complicated. I found myself attracted to emotionally unavailable people, at first unconsciously recreating familiar patterns. Dr. Kim helped me recognize this tendency and work through it. I went on a series of first dates that led nowhere, until I finally admitted to myself that Damon, my coworker and friend, had become someone I thought about in more than friendly ways. The most significant addition to my independent life came in the form of a small gray cat I adopted from a shelter. Luna had been overlooked by potential adopters because she was shy and older than the kittens. Something about her hesitant approach to human interaction resonated with me deeply. She became my constant companion, greeting me when I came home, and sleeping curled against my side each night. Birthdays and holidays continued to pass with minimal acknowledgement from my family. My 23rd birthday brought a text message from my mother. "Happy birthday, Dad and I are in Aspen this week." My 24th, a generic e-card that could have been sent to anyone. My 25th, nothing at all. I stopped waiting for their recognition. I had built a life full of people who celebrated me authentically, who saw me clearly. My parents' absence still hurt, sometimes a dull ache that flared occasionally, but it no longer defined me. By my 4th year of independence, I had been promoted to senior designer at Meridian. My client list included major local businesses and even a few national brands. My tiny studio had been traded for a one-bedroom with enough space for a dedicated work area. Luna had been joined by a second rescue cat, Apollo, who had boundless energy that brought out Luna's playful side. I had created a life that reflected my values and nurtured my spirit. I was proud of what I'd built from nothing, of the person I was becoming, without the shadow of my parents' indifference hanging over me. And then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, everything changed with a single phone call. I remember every detail of that morning. I was getting ready for work, hair still damp from the shower, Apollo weaving between my ankles as I made coffee. My phone buzzed on the counter, and when I glanced at it, the screen displayed a name I hadn't seen in years: Dad. My hand shook as I reached for the phone. 4 years of silence broken by a call on a random Tuesday. Had someone died? Was he ill? Had they finally realized I had been gone all this time? "Hello?" I answered, my voice smaller than I intended. "Audrey." My father's voice was exactly as I remembered it. Authoritative, clipped, businesslike. No warmth, no indication that he was speaking to his daughter after years of no contact. "Dad," I said, waiting for an explanation, an apology, anything that acknowledged the vast gulf of time and silence between us. "How are you?" he asked, but rushed on before I could answer. "Listen, we need to talk about something important. Not, 'I've missed you,' or 'we've been worried.' Just straight to business." "Okay," I said, sinking into a kitchen chair, my coffee forgotten. "It's about your brother. Jackson is sick. His liver is failing." A cold dread washed over me. Whatever our complicated family dynamics, I didn't wish harm on my brother. "What happened? Is he going to be okay?" "The doctors say he needs a transplant soon." My father cleared his throat. "We've all been tested. Your mother, me, extended family. No one's a match. I started connecting the dots before he continued. We need you to get tested, Audrey. As his sister, you're the most likely match. Not, we miss you and would like to reconnect. Not, we're sorry we haven't been in touch. Just, we need your liver. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process both the news about Jackson and the cold calculation behind this sudden reconnection. Audrey, did you hear me? My father's impatient tone snapped me back. Yes, I heard you. Jackson is sick and you need part of my liver. Well, we don't know if you're a match yet, but the doctors say siblings have the best chance. What happened to his liver? I asked. A pause. He's had some struggles with alcohol, started in college. I wasn't entirely surprised. Jackson had always been under immense pressure to be perfect. How long has this been going on? That's not important right now. What's important is getting you tested as soon as possible. Dad, I haven't spoken to any of you in 4 years. You didn't even notice when I moved out. Another pause. Of course we noticed, Audrey. Don't be dramatic. You left a note saying you were moving to Boston. We respected your independence. The revisionist history was breathtaking, and not once did you call to check if I was okay. You're an adult. We assumed you'd call if you needed anything. His tone hardened. And now the family needs something. Your brother needs something. I closed my eyes, trying to center myself. How did you even know how to reach me? This is a new number. We've kept tabs on you through social media. Your mother follows that design page where your work appears. We saw you were promoted last year. The revelation sent a chill through me. They had been monitoring me from afar, not out of care, but to assess my usefulness. They knew about my career progress, but never once congratulated me. They had my contact information, but never used it until they needed something from me. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You haven't spoken to me in 4 years. You never called to check on me, never acknowledged any of my accomplishments. But now that you need part of my body suddenly, I'm worth contacting. This isn't about you, Audrey. This is about saving your brother's life. You owe this to your family. I owe this to my family. The family that packed my belongings in a damp garage. The family that converted my room without telling me. The family that never once asked if I was okay living on my own at 22. I'll think about getting tested, I said finally. There's nothing to think about. This is your brother's life we're talking about. My father's voice rose. You always were selfish. If you don't do this, you're no longer part of this family. The threat hung in the air between us. After a moment, I laughed a short, pained sound. Dad, I haven't been part of this family for years. That was your choice. I ended the call and immediately collapsed into tears. All the progress I'd made in therapy, all the healing, all the careful building of a new life, it felt shaken to the core by a single conversation. With trembling fingers, I called Dr. Kim's office and left a message requesting an emergency session. Then I called in sick to work something I rarely did. An hour later, Dr. Kim called me back and arranged to see me that afternoon. I spent the intervening hours curled on my couch with both cats trying to process what had happened. My phone rang again around noon, my mother this time. Audrey, she said when I answered, her voice carrying the practiced sympathy she used with clients. Your father told me you're being difficult about the liver donation. Hello to you too, Mom. 4 years, and that's how you start a conversation. She ignored my comment. I know this is sudden, but Jackson is very ill. The doctors say a living donor transplant is his best option. So I've heard. Then you understand the urgency. We need you to come to Boston Medical Center tomorrow for testing. I haven't agreed to anything yet, Mom. This is a major surgery we're talking about. I need time to think. What is there to think about? This is your brother. Her voice took on the sharp edge I remembered from childhood disappointments. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Everything you've done for me, I repeated in disbelief. You haven't even spoken to me in 4 years. That was your choice. You moved out. And not once did you call to see if I was okay. You didn't even notice I was gone until you read the note. We gave you space to be independent, which is clearly what you wanted. And now we're asking for one thing, one important thing, and you're hesitating. The conversation continued in circles, my mother alternating between guilt trips and veiled threats about family obligation. By the time I hung up, I was emotionally exhausted, but clearer about what I needed to do. That afternoon in Dr. Kim's office, I poured out the whole story. They're treating me like a spare parts shop, not a daughter, I concluded, wiping away tears. Dr. Kim's expression was compassionate but concerned. Audrey, organ donation is a deeply personal choice. No one should pressure you into it, not even family, especially not family who've been absent for years. But it's my brother's life, I said. Whatever issues I have with my parents, Jackson is a victim of their dysfunction too. That's true. And it speaks to your compassion that you're considering this despite everything. But consider this from a medical ethics perspective. Donation needs to be freely given, not coerced. We talked through various scenarios and perspectives. By the end of our session, I had made a decision. I would get tested. Not for my parents, but because I wouldn't want to live with the question of whether I could have helped save my brother's life. But I would do it on my terms, with clear boundaries. That night I couldn't sleep. The cats sensed my distress, both of them curled protectively around me as I stared at the ceiling, replaying my parents' words over and over. One phrase kept echoing, "You owe this to your family." But what did my family owe to me? The Boston Medical Center transplant department was located in a modern wing with soothing blue walls and abstract art. I had called them directly, rather than going through my parents, explaining my situation to the transplant coordinator, a woman named Sheila, with a kind voice and no-nonsense manner. "We take the well-being of potential donors very seriously," she assured me. "This process will be about your health and your decision, not anyone else's." My first appointment involved blood work, a physical exam, and a lengthy medical history. The doctor, Dr. Patel, was thorough and frank about what liver donation would entail. "This is major surgery," he explained. "Recovery takes weeks to months. There are risks, though. Serious complications are rare in healthy donors. But I want you to understand exactly what you'd be facing." He described the procedure, the hospital stay, the recovery period, and potential complications. It was daunting, but I appreciated his transparency. "And if I'm a match and decide to do this, what happens to my brother?" I asked. "The transplanted liver portion would begin functioning immediately. With proper care and anti-rejection medication, the prognosis for recipients is quite good. Around 90% survive the first year, and many live normal lives afterward." As I was preparing to leave, Sheila asked if I'd be comfortable speaking with the transplant social worker. "We require psychological evaluations for all potential donors," she explained. "But in your case, given what you've shared about your family situation, I think it would be especially beneficial." The social worker, Ms. Ramirez, had a small office with plants in every corner and a box of tissues prominently placed on her desk. She asked gentle but probing questions about my relationship with my family, my support system, and my reasons for considering donation. When I described the years of emotional neglect and the recent demanding phone calls, her expression grew concerned. "Audrey, I need to be direct with you. What you're describing raises red flags about potential coercion. Ethical organ donation must be freely given without pressure or manipulation." "I understand that," I said. "But I'm making this decision for myself, not for them." "I believe you're trying to, but the dynamics you're describing are complex. Before we proceed further, I'd like to arrange a family meeting here at the hospital. We need to observe the family dynamics firsthand and ensure everyone understands the medical and psychological aspects of this process." The meeting was scheduled for the following week. I spent the intervening days in a state of high anxiety, discussing the situation repeatedly with Dr. Kim and Zoe. Damon brought me lunch at work and listened patiently to my worries without judgment. "Whatever you decide, I've got your back," he promised. "And if you need time off after the surgery, I'll take care of your plants and the cats." The morning of the family meeting arrived with a sense of surreal dread. I hadn't seen my parents in 4 years. I hadn't seen Jackson in even longer. The thought of facing them all in a medical setting to discuss donating part of my liver Felt like something from a bizarre dream. I arrived early, following Ms. Ramirez to a private consultation room. Dr. Patel joined us along with Sheila and another doctor who specialized in transplant surgery. We made small talk while waiting, my anxiety building with each passing minute. The door opened, and there they were. My father, Thomas Silver, now prominent in his dark hair, wearing an expensive suit as if this were a business meeting. My mother, Meredith, thin and elegant as always, her expression unreadable. And Jackson, shockingly altered from the healthy young man I remembered. His skin had a yellow tinge, his frame gaunt, his eyes sunken with dark circles beneath them. He moved slowly, supported by our father. No one hugged me. My mother nodded curtly. My father guided Jackson to a seat before acknowledging me with a brief, "Audrey." Jackson looked up, genuine surprise crossing his face. "Sis," he said, his voice weak but warm. "It's been forever. You look good." "Thanks, Jackson. I wish we were seeing each other under better circumstances." An awkward silence fell until Dr. Patel took charge, explaining the medical situation and the transplant process in detail. My parents listened intently, asking technical questions about success rates and recovery times. No one mentioned the years of absence or the circumstances of our reunion. Ms. Ramirez then outlined the psychological aspects of organ donation and transplantation. "This is not simply a medical procedure," she emphasized. "It's a profound emotional and psychological journey for both donor and recipient. Family support is crucial for both parties." My father shifted impatiently. "Yes, yes, we understand all that. The important question is Audrey a match or not?" Ms. Ramirez exchanged a glance with Dr. Patel. "We're still completing the compatibility workup. But before we proceed further, I'd like to address the family dynamics here." "What do you mean, family dynamics?" my mother asked sharply. "Audrey has expressed concerns about feeling pressured into donation after years of minimal contact with the family. As medical professionals, we have an ethical obligation to ensure all donations are freely given without coercion." My father's face darkened. "That's ridiculous. No one is coercing anyone. This is a family matter." "Actually, sir," Sheila interjected, "organ donation is a medical decision first and foremost with significant legal and ethical dimensions. We take donor advocacy very seriously here." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. I gathered my courage and spoke up. "I think we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. I haven't heard from any of you in 4 years. I moved out and no one even called to check if I was okay. Now, I get a call out of the blue not because you missed me or were worried, but because you need something from me." My mother's lips thinned. "That's not fair, Audrey. We've always respected your independence." "Independence, Mom? I was 22, leaving home for the first time, and you didn't even call to see if I had a place to stay." My father waved dismissively. "You left a note saying you were moving to Boston for your job. We knew you had things handled. I could have been homeless for all you knew." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "You never asked. You never checked. You converted my room to a gym without even telling me. You packed my things in the garage where half of them got ruined from moisture." "We needed the space," my mother said, as if this explained everything. Jackson looked between us, confusion evident on his face. "Wait, what? You moved out years ago. They told me you were too busy with your career to visit." The revelation hung in the air. My parents had been lying to Jackson about my absence, painting me as the one who had abandoned the family. "I've been living in Boston for 4 years," I told him directly, "working as a graphic designer. I left a note when I moved out, and no one contacted me until Dad called about the liver transplant." Jackson's gaze shifted to our parents' questions in his eyes. Ms. Ramirez cleared her throat. "This is exactly the type of family communication issue that concerns us in transplant cases. Clear, honest communication and support are essential for both donor and recipient recovery." My father's patience visibly snapped. "This isn't family therapy. This is about saving my son's life." Now, is Audrey a match or not? Dr. Patel's expression remained professional, but cooled noticeably. "We have completed the initial compatibility tests. Based on blood type and tissue markers, I'm afraid Ms. Sullivan is not a compatible donor for her brother." The news hit me with mixed emotions. Relief that I wouldn't have to make the difficult choice, guilt that I couldn't help my brother, and sadness at confirming what I'd already known. Once I wasn't useful, my parents would disappear from my life again. Sure enough, my father's interest in me vanished instantly. He turned to Dr. Patel asking about other potential donors and getting Jackson on transplant lists. My mother began gathering her designer handbag and jacket, clearly ready to leave now that I had no utility. "We've already tested several family friends," my mother informed Dr. Patel, not looking at me. "No matches so far." "The national transplant list is his best option now," Dr. Patel replied. "We'll do everything we can to find a suitable donor." As my parents huddled with the doctors discussing next steps, I found myself face to face with Jackson. "I would have done it, I told him quietly. "Despite everything." He nodded weakly. "I believe you." "And I'm sorry, sis. I had no idea things were so bad between you and them, or that they'd basically ignored you moving out." "It's not your fault, Jackson. You were always caught in the middle of their dysfunction too, just in a different way." "Still." He reached out and squeezed my hand. "I should have checked on you myself. I guess I was wrapped up in my own problems." He glanced toward our parents. "They're not easy to please. Nothing's ever enough." "I know," I said, all too well. My drinking got bad in college, trying to be perfect, dad's golden boy. The pressure was— He trailed off, looking even more exhausted. I squeezed his hand back. "I understand. More than you know." As we prepared to leave, my father approached me for what I knew would be the last time. "Well, that's that then," he said briskly. "Sorry to have wasted your time. Not thank you for trying. Not, it's been good to see you despite the circumstances. Just dismissal." Dad," I said quietly, "I would have helped if I could. Not for you, but for Jackson. That's what families should do for each other. But it goes both ways." His expression hardened. "Don't lecture me about family, Audrey. You're the one who walked away. I left a note and waited for you to call. You're the ones who didn't care enough to pick up the phone for 4 years." He shook his head, already mentally checked out of the conversation. "Always so dramatic. Always making everything about you. Some things never change." As he turned away, he delivered his parting shot. "I guess you're still finding ways to fail this family." He walked away to join my mother and Jackson, not looking back once. And just like that, I was invisible again. The aftermath of the hospital meeting left me emotionally shattered. I sat in my car in the parking garage for nearly an hour, unable to stop crying or gather the strength to drive home. Eventually, I called Zoe, who immediately left work to come get me. "I can't believe they treated you like that," she fumed as she drove us back to my apartment. "After everything, to just dismiss you because you can't give them what they want, that's beyond toxic." Back at my place, Zoe called our other close friends. Within an hour, my small living room was filled with my chosen family. Damon brought takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. Paige arrived with ice cream and wine. Marcus and his husband David came bearing comfort movies and extra tissues. "We're having an emergency support session," Zoe announced, "because Audrey's biological family are monsters and she needs reminding what real family looks like." I was overwhelmed by their immediate, unhesitating support. No one questioned whether I deserved their time or attention. They simply showed up because I needed them. That night, curled on my couch surrounded by friends, I experienced conflicting emotions. Relief that I wasn't a match and wouldn't have to make the difficult decision about donation. Worry for Jackson, whose health was clearly deteriorating. Anger at my parents for their callous treatment. And a deep, aching grief for the family relationship I had never had and never would. "I don't know why I'm so upset," I admitted through tears. "It's not like I expected anything different from them." "Because hope is stubborn," Damon set his arm around my shoulders. "Part of you still wanted them to see you, to realize what they'd lost, to finally value you the way you deserve." "What happens now?" Paige asked gently. "With your brother, I mean." "They'll try to find another donor, or he'll wait for a deceased donor liver. His chances are actually pretty good from what the doctor said." I wiped my eyes. "But I don't think I'll be part of it. They made it clear I'm only family when I'm useful." After my friends left, Zoe stayed the night, neither of us wanting me to be alone. The next morning over coffee, she revealed something she'd kept from me for years. Your parents called me once, she admitted. About a year after you moved out. I nearly dropped my mug. What? Why didn't you tell me? Because it would have hurt you more. They didn't call to check on you or ask how you were doing. Your dad called looking for some tax documents related to your college scholarship. Not once did he ask if I knew how you were or if you were okay. The revelation shouldn't have hurt after everything else, but it did. They had my best friend's contact information and still couldn't be bothered to inquire about my well-being. That afternoon, I had another emergency session with Dr. Kim. I think it's time to consider going fully no contact, she suggested gently. The pattern of re-engaging only to be hurt again isn't serving your healing. But what about Jackson? I asked. He seemed genuinely sorry. You can maintain a relationship with your brother separate from your parents if that feels right to you. But for your parents, I think a clear boundary is needed. Over the next few days, I thought carefully about what complete separation from my parents would mean. I consulted with Dr. Kim about the healthiest way to establish the boundary. Together, we drafted an email that was clear, firm, and avoided the emotional language that my parents had always dismissed as dramatic. To Thomas Sullivan, Meredith Sullivan, subject, going forward. I am writing to formally inform you that I will no longer be maintaining contact with you. The events at the hospital confirmed what I have long suspected. I am not valued as a daughter, but only as a potential resource. For my own mental health and well-being, I am ending all communication. Please do not contact me again, except in the case of life or death emergencies regarding Jackson. I have spent years in therapy processing the emotional neglect I experienced growing up and the complete abandonment when I moved out. I have worked hard to build a fulfilling life surrounded by people who value me for who I am not, what I can provide. I wish you well, but I cannot continue to open myself up to the pain of your indifference. Audrey. My finger hovered over the send button for a long time. Once sent, this email would change everything. Not the relationship. That had been broken for years, but my acknowledgement of its brokenness. No more pretending there was something to salvage. Before I could second-guess myself, Damon called to check in on me. We had grown closer since the hospital confrontation, his steady support a contrast to my family's coldness. When I told him about the email, he asked if I wanted company when I sent it. I don't want you to face this alone, he said. Unless you need the space, of course. Actually, I'd really like you to be here, I admitted. He arrived an hour later with dinner and a quiet, supportive presence. As we sat on my couch, the cats curled between us. I explained my fears about cutting ties completely. What if I regret it? What if this makes me the bad guy in the family narrative? What if Jackson gets worse and they don't tell me? Damon listened carefully before responding. Those are all valid concerns. But Audrey, from everything you've told me, you've spent your entire life trying to be seen by people who refuse to look. At some point, you have to stop standing in front of a mirror that never reflects you back. His words resonated deeply. When did you get so wise? I asked, smiling despite my anxiety. Probably around the time I realized I was falling in love with you, he said quietly. I stared at him, processing his words. What? I'm sorry, that's probably terrible timing. He ran a hand through his hair nervously. But seeing everything you've been going through, how strong you've been despite it all, I didn't want to wait to tell you. You deserve to know you're valued, appreciated, loved. In that moment, with the weight of my family's rejection still fresh, his words were like oxygen to someone drowning. I moved closer to him on the couch. That's actually perfect timing, I said. I've been feeling something too, but with everything happening, you don't have to say anything back, he assured me. I just wanted you to know. Whatever you decide about your family, about us, about anything, I'm here. For the first time in days, I felt a lightness in my chest. I reached over and took his hand, then turned back to my laptop and clicked send on the email without further hesitation. Done, I said. No going back now. How do you feel? He asked. Terrified, relieved, sad, free, all of it at once. That sounds about right. He squeezed my hand. Want to watch a terrible movie and not think about it for a while. That night, with Damon beside me and my cats nestled between us, I took the first real step toward freedom from my family's emotional prison. The practical aspects followed: blocking their numbers, setting social media to private, ensuring they couldn't access me when the mood struck them. A week later, Jackson reached out independently through Instagram. His message was brief, but heartfelt. "I understand why you've cut contact with mom and dad. I just want you to know I'm not blaming you, and I'd like to stay in touch if you're open to it. No pressure either way. Getting treatment, feeling hopeful. Take care, sis." After consultation with Dr. Kim, I decided to maintain limited contact with Jackson separate from our parents. We established a cautious text relationship, checking in occasionally without pressure for more. The holiday season approached my first with complete freedom from family obligation. I hosted a chosen family dinner in my apartment with Damon, Zoe, and other close friends crowded around my small table. We ate too much, laughed constantly, and built new traditions that honored connection rather than blood ties. Late that night, after everyone had left except Damon, who had begun staying over regularly, I received a message from Jackson. "Just FYI, mom and dad are telling the extended family you abandoned me during my health crisis. Thought you should know. Sorry they're like this. I've tried setting the record straight with the cousins at least." The news hurt, but less than I expected. "They're still trying to control the narrative," I told Damon. "Make me the villain." "What do you want to do?" he asked. I considered my options. I could try to defend myself to relatives who had never really known me. I could rage against the injustice. Or I could choose a different path. "I think I'll send a simple email to the aunts and uncles. Just the facts. That I was tested, but wasn't a match, that I wish Jackson well, and that I've chosen to step back from contact with my parents for personal reasons. No drama, no accusations. Just truth." "Taking the high road," Damon observed. "Very on brand for you." "Not the high road exactly," I corrected. "Just my road. One where I don't have to justify my existence anymore." 6 months after cutting contact with my parents, my life had transformed in ways both subtle and profound. I received a major promotion at work to design team leader, overseeing projects for our most important clients. My relationship with Damon had deepened into a partnership built on mutual respect and genuine interest in each other's worlds, something I'd never witnessed in my parents' marriage. Jackson and I maintained our cautious communication. He had finally received a liver transplant from a deceased donor and was recovering well. Through our conversations, I learned more about his own struggles with our parents' expectations. "Dad wanted me to be his clone," he texted one night. "Nothing I did was ever good enough either, just in a different way than with you." "How are you handling it now?" I asked. "Therapy helps, and rehab gave me perspective. Their approval isn't worth destroying myself for." We were both healing in our own ways and on our own timelines. One afternoon, I received an unexpected letter with a return address I didn't recognize from Western Massachusetts. Inside was a handwritten note on floral stationery. "Dear Audrey, you may not remember me well, but I'm your maternal grandmother, Eleanor. It's been many years since we've seen each other, as your mother told me you were always too busy with your career for family visits. I recently learned from your cousin Bethany that this might not be the case. If you're willing, I would very much like to reconnect. At 82, I've learned life is too short for misunderstandings and missed connections. With love, Grandma Ellie." I sat with the letter for a long time, memories surfacing of a warm, soft-spoken woman who had visited occasionally when I was very young. I had only the vaguest recollections of her. My mother rarely mentioned her own mother, and visits had stopped entirely by the time I was 10. After careful consideration, I called the number included in the letter. A slightly tremulous voice answered, brightening immediately when I introduced myself. "Audrey? Oh, my dear, I'm so glad you called. I've thought of you often over the years." We spoke for over an hour. I learned that my mother had kept her at arm's length for decades, dismissing her as too emotional and impractical. The parallels to how my mother had treated me were striking. "Your mother had a difficult time accepting love that didn't come with conditions," Grandma Ellie explained. Her father, my late husband, was very much like your father, success-oriented, emotionally distant. Meredith learned early that achievement brought the closest thing to approval she could get. That doesn't excuse how she treated me, I said. No, dear, it certainly doesn't. Understanding isn't the same as excusing. She had choices, and she made the wrong ones with you. I'm deeply sorry for that. 2 weeks later, I drove to the small town in western Massachusetts, where my grandmother lived in a tidy cottage surrounded by flower gardens. She welcomed me with tears and open arms, holding me tightly, as if making up for years of missing embraces. Over homemade pie that weekend, she showed me family photos I'd never seen and told me stories about my mother as a child, a serious little girl always trying to please her demanding father. I see myself in you, she told me. Not in looks, though you have the family eyes, but in spirit. I had to learn to build my own joy, too, after your grandfather passed. It took me too long to realize I deserved more than crumbs of affection. My grandmother became an unexpected blessing in my life, a link to my family history that didn't carry the pain of my immediate family connections. We established a tradition of monthly visits and weekly phone calls. My therapy with Dr. Kim evolved from crisis management to deeper healing. In one particularly significant session, I had a breakthrough about my sense of worth. I think I've been trying to prove my value through achievement my whole life, I realized. Just like my mother did. I thought if I was successful enough, impressive enough, eventually they'd see me. But the problem was never my accomplishments. The problem was their inability to see value in relationship itself. Dr. Kim nodded. That's a powerful insight, Audrey. What does that mean for how you move forward? It means I can stop performing, I can just be, and trust that the right people will value that. I began to put this insight into practice both professionally and personally. At work, I focused less on seeking approval and more on creating designs that felt authentic and meaningful. I started a small side project designing greeting cards that celebrated unconventional life paths and chosen family connections. The project brought me joy without pressure. With Damon, I practiced being fully present without constantly monitoring whether I was being enough, funny enough, interesting enough, accommodating enough. He noticed the change. You seem lighter, he observed one evening as we cooked dinner together in my apartment. More you somehow. I'm trying something new, I explained. Just existing without trying to justify my existence. He smiled. I'm a fan of this experiment. I've always been a fan of you just existing. As our relationship deepened, we began discussing living together. His lease was ending, and we already spent most nights at one apartment or the other. Your place or mine? He asked one night. Neither, I suggested. What if we find somewhere new, a fresh start that's ours from the beginning? We found a sunny 2-bedroom in a neighborhood we both loved. Moving in together was a leap of faith I wouldn't have been capable of a year earlier. Building a home with someone required trust, that they wouldn't suddenly decide I wasn't worth the space I occupied. Almost exactly a year after the hospital confrontation, I had an unexpected encounter. Damon and I were having dinner at a new restaurant downtown. When I looked up to see my parents being seated across the room, my heart stuttered in my chest. Are you okay? Damon asked, noticing my expression. My parents just walked in, I whispered. He immediately reached for my hand. Do you want to leave? I took a deep breath. No, this is our night. I'm not letting them ruin it. Inevitably, as they made their way to their table, they spotted me. My mother's eyes widened in recognition. My father paused, his expression unreadable. For a moment, we all simply stared at each other across the restaurant. Then my father did something unexpected. He changed course and approached our table, my mother following reluctantly behind. Audrey, he said, his tone cautiously neutral. What a coincidence. Dad, Mom, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. This is Damon, my boyfriend. Damon stood and offered his hand. Nice to meet you. My father shook it automatically while my mother nodded stiffly. How have you been? My father asked, as if we'd simply lost touch through ordinary circumstances. I'm well. I was recently promoted at work. Damon and I just moved in together. Simple facts, no emotional hooks. That's good, my mother said, clearly uncomfortable. Your brother is doing better. The transplant was successful. I know, we text regularly. This clearly surprised them. We should let you get back to your dinner, my father said after an awkward pause. Perhaps we could get coffee sometime, catch up properly. I considered this apparent olive branch, searching for genuine interest in his expression, and finding none. Just social obligation and perhaps curiosity. I don't think that would be helpful, I said calmly. I wish you both well, but I'm not interested in rebuilding a relationship. My mother's lips thinned. You always were stubborn. Not stubborn, just clear about what I deserve. I looked them both in the eye. I deserve to be valued for who I am, not what I can provide. I deserve to be seen, not just when it's convenient. I've built a life full of people who understand that. My father started to respond likely with some dismissal of my feelings, but stopped himself. For once, he seemed to have no ready argument. Goodbye, I said simply, turning my attention back to Damon. After a moment's hesitation, they walked away. I watched them retreat to their table heads, bent together in conversation. Are you okay? Damon asked softly. I took a moment to check in with myself, surprised to find I genuinely was. Yes, better than okay, actually. That was closing a door that needed closing. A few months later, Damon and I hosted our first major dinner party in our new home. The table was crowded with my chosen family, Zoe and her new girlfriend Marcus, and David colleagues who had become friends, my grandmother, who had traveled from Western Massachusetts for the occasion, and even Jackson, now recovering well and cautiously building his own independent life. As I looked around at these faces, people who chose to be present, who showed up consistently, who saw me clearly, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey from invisible daughter to self-assured woman hadn't been easy. The pain of my parents' neglect would always be part of my story, but it no longer defined me. I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who never saw your worth. That family isn't determined by blood, but by consistent care and genuine interest. That you can break cycles and create the validation you never received. As I raised my glass in a toast, I caught my grandmother's eye. She winked at me, a silent acknowledgement of how far I'd come. Beside me, Damon squeezed my hand under the table. Around us, conversation and laughter flowed freely in the warm, accepting space we had created together. This, I thought, is what home feels like. Not a place where you have to earn your right to exist, but one where your very existence is celebrated. Not perfect, not without challenges, but founded on the revolutionary idea that love shouldn't have to be earned. It should simply be given. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members who couldn't see your worth? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and like this video so others might find it too. Remember, sometimes the family you create means more than the one you're born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you recognize your own inherent value, no matter who fails to see it.